Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Fearless Training Raw Knowledge Podcast with myself, your host, Alex Connor, where we talk about everything training, nutrition, and lifestyle collectively. And it's another week, and it's another beautiful day here on the GC. That's the Gold Coast of Australia. It's blue skies, the sun is shining. It's hard to live here. It's terrible. It's absolutely disgusting. Now, as you can imagine, it is beautiful weather and it's summer all year round, pretty much, especially for myself, who originates from the UK. However, been away a long time and acclimatized now to much warmer weather. And you get a bit of a snob after a while. You expect it to be warm and beautiful all the time. So we're very fortunate here in the Gold Coast, although it's funny because sometimes the grass isn't always greener, because if it's hot people complain and if it's cold people complain. So it's all about that framing and mindset at the end of the day, I think. However, I'm back with another guest this week, and a couple of weeks ago some of you may have noticed on social, who keep an eye on it, that I spent some time with Nick Jones from Gentech Nutrition. He's the founder, he's the owner, he's the main man, if you like. And we did some filming down at one of my favorite gyms, Hold Your Own, my home from home, if you like, where we were creating some content along with Nutrition Warehouse and myself and Nick with his brand Gentech. And we were trying to educate and put out better, valuable content, which is in essence of people who were short on time, to try and help them train smarter, more intelligently, more efficiently, not only just in the gym, but out of the gym as well. And then we go on to do some more nutrition-based recipes. So keep an eye out for that, because that will be coming along fairly soon. And to be quite honest, I think a lot of you are going to benefit from it, because in this fast-paced world we now find ourselves in, where people are consistently trying to take shortcuts, it definitely helps if you can work a little bit smarter. It's not about taking shortcuts, but it's about finding more effective means to be able to get things done, especially if you are a busy professional or you've got a family where you do have time limitations at this stage in your life. So keep an eye out for that coming very soon. Secondarily, the masterclasses. We have the new series starting soon with myself and Chef Ash. We've partnered up with Icon Kitchens. That's where Ash is based. That's Ashley Galloway. She's one of the very talented chefs there. And I reached out to Peter, one of the owners, a couple of months ago, and I really wanted to provide some more valuable content for clients and people around my local area, which is in Robina, and my gym where I train out of, which is EMF, that's Elite Military Fitness in Robina, which is probably one of the best, if not the best, in my opinion, commercial gyms in Australia at present, and growing very rapidly. Yes, I'm biased, but I did choose that location for a reason, and it does tick a lot of boxes. It's clean cut, it's professional, the service is fantastic, and the equipment is just unparalleled. So keep an eye out for that one. If you've not got your ticket, they are on sale now. You can grab them. I put the link in the description box below. This one is based around quick, easy, and tasty meal and snack ideas that you can use with, again, limited time, no skill, really low effort on your part, and also they're very economical as well. They're cheap, they're easy, they're fast, effective. They're all that good stuff that you want, right? But they're all macroed out, they're all caloried out, and we're going to be in the kitchen. There'll be live tasting. You're going to get to take food home. And then we're going to open it up to the floor, the Q&A, because I want to help the people. So you'll have me, myself, professional chef Ash, nutritionist, etc. And we'll be able to go in and really help you out there with your nutrition, so that you can walk away with some answers and some remedies, if you like, as well as some really tasty food. And that's just the start of a new series of masterclasses, because the next one will be in the kitchen. It's 2 hours, it's immersive, it's fully hands-on. You will be cooking, you will be eating, and you will be enjoying, and you will be walking away with better knowledge. And the reason why I'm doing this is because after years of coaching people, this is where it always falls down. It's the nutrition, because you can do as much work as you want in the gym, but if you're not getting it right on the nutrition front, it's just not going to work. And then don't get me started on sleep. However, as we're on the topic of nutrition, my guest this week, Nick Jones, knows about nutrition. So, for those of you who don't know about Nick, he founded the company Gentech Nutrition in 1999, and he's devoted 33 years of his life to nutrition, health, and the art of bodybuilding. Okay, so first and foremost, Nick Jones is a body recomposition specialist whose goal is always to improve the quality of life and enhance performance through superior nutrition, exercise, and specific supplementation, that of which we go into in this podcast. It was definitely good to understand and get more specific definitions from Nick himself on how the supplements are produced, how to rectify, how to put together a higher quality supplement for the market. And Nick's dedication to bodybuilding has paid dividends as well throughout the past 28 years, as he's been justified by his achievements through local and national and also international platforms. So those of you in the bodybuilding world will be very aware of Nick. His achievements include Mr. World, Mr. Australia, Mr. Australasia, and first runner-up in the prestigious Mr. Universe competition. So he's a bodybuilder, he's a dad, he's a business owner, he's a great guy. I must admit, on a very sincere note, I really enjoyed my time with Nick. We had an amazing laugh. We were just always cracking jokes. There was never a dull moment. We shared a lot of ideas. I learned a lot from him, being someone who has a bit more experience on this planet than me, and I always try and take that experience. So yeah, it was a really enjoyable time, and no doubt there'll be a round two. So guys, listen in with this one. I'm sure you're going to get some golden nuggets out of it. And as always, I will be speaking to you very soon. So enjoy this conversation between myself and world champion bodybuilder, Nick Jones. Nick, welcome to the Fearless Training Raw Knowledge podcast, my friend.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you. It's nice to be here. It's great to be here.
We appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
All right, let's start off as we always do. Talk us through who you are, what you do, a little bit about yourself, your background, whatever you want to share. Give us a bit of an insight into who Nick Jones is.
Well, these days, right now, who am I? I've evolved into a father of three. I have two beautiful daughters, 8 years old, 6.5, and my baby boy just turned 3. So I'm a dad, I'm a business owner. I founded Gentech Nutrition, sports supplement company, nearly 20 years ago. It's gone quick, time flies.
It does.
I'm not a retired bodybuilder. I never say I'm a retired bodybuilder. I'm a former world champion across a couple of federations, both NABBA. I won the world championships in New Zealand in 2000 down in Christchurch. I won class 4, and I won the Musclemania overall world championships as a natural bodybuilder in 2006 in Universal Studios in LA. So I hadn't competed for 10 years, and I made a comeback at the start of this year after 10 years. So I can't say that I'm a former Mr. Australasia, because I'm a current Mr. Australasia with the IFBB. I won that title and got awarded a pro card back in March of this year, being 2019. So I'm not a retired bodybuilder, I'm still an avid bodybuilder. I'm a martial artist, I love Arakan martial art. So I guess I'm a lot of things these days, and it's a daily juggle to maintain all of those things, but I'm passionate, I've got to say, about all of them. I'm passionate about my business, very passionate about my family. I've got to say I'm a loving husband as well. That's a role that you can't underestimate. For any blokes out there, you know, you've still got to put time into your relationship, which is very easy to lose sight of that because we're so busy with work, with the children, and then with getting that bit of personal time. So getting my training done, my weight training, my Arakan martial arts. So it's a pretty full lifestyle. That's who I am these days. Where I came from is a very different story. I was born in the UK. We moved to Adelaide when I was just a baby at 18 months old.
Whereabouts in the UK?
I'm an Essex boy, Alex. It might explain a bit about my teenage years and my early 20s, because it's in me without spending any time in Essex. What I've heard about it, I'm definitely an Essex boy, mate. So it's in me.
You can take the man out of Essex, but you can't take the Essex
there
out of the boy,
you go.
Right?
That's right, mate. I've still got that wild streak, which is probably why I like doing martial arts and you know, punching each other in the face and edging each other in the throat on cold winter's nights in Sydney in a car park. So
nice.
Yeah, I'm selling it to you, aren't I?
Yeah.
It's great, mate. You'll love it. You'll love it. Yeah, but I grew up in Adelaide, South Australia, and that's where the majority of my bodybuilding was done. It's a long story to that. You know, my folks split when I was young. I was only 6. Affected me as it does with all children. And I guess back then, it wasn't so common, Alex, you know, so I was one of the few kids that would turn up at sports day with, you know, just my mum, and my dad was never there. So it was probably, it did affect me. So I ended up having to do a lot of personal work because of that. But again, it served me extraordinarily well. I grew up younger, through a lot of hardship, a lot of trouble. I was in trouble with the law quite a lot in my teenage years. And bodybuilding saved me from that, really. And I, you know, we lived in Housing Commission as well in Adelaide. So, you know, there wasn't much money there, you know, and mum, being a single mum, you know, she had to hustle and work full time, as well as try and raise myself and my brother, who's 18 months older than me. So, yeah, and we had no family around because we're from the UK. Mum and dad left the UK, no family followed them. So we had a very, I think it's different now. It was normal to me. I think it's different now because my wife Angela's Greek, and my in-laws are still together, Arthur and Maria, my mother and father-in-law, and they're just the best people. They, you know, they would take a bullet for my kids. They are so family oriented or orientated. That it's just beautiful, and to see a family unit together like that, it's really nice, and it's what I aspire to have. I aspire to work on my marriage, keep my family together, because I know what it's like to have a family split up. I know what it's like to come from a broken home, and I don't want that for my children. So, yeah, I guess I've been inspired in many ways through positives and negatives, and it's all shaped me to who I am today and shaped my philosophies and has given me a life which has been and is extraordinarily rich in so many ways. The good, the bad, the ugly, the depression, the chronic fatigue, the highlights of world championships, and everything in between, you know. So I liken it to climbing to the top of Everest, and by all means I'm not at the top of Everest yet, but it's pretty easy to stay in the valley. You know what the weather's going to be like all the time, and it's pretty safe, and you know your surroundings, and you're prepared for it, but you don't really grow and evolve that much. If you want to go to the top, metaphorically, you're going to have all sorts of different weather conditions along the way. You know, you're going to have different terrain along the way, and it's going to be very challenging. And you're going to have some hard times, and you're going to have some celebrations, and some victories, and some defeats, and some victories, and some confusing times, and some lessons. So it's, and you know, there's so many cliches that ring true, which comes to mind when I talk about that, and it's about the journey. Yeah, it's always about the journey. It's not about the destination. It's always about the journey. That's where the richness is. Whether it's hard at that time, whether it's struggle, whether it seems good or bad, that's where the juice of life is. It's in the journey. So I'm very mindful and aware of that on a daily basis, which helps a hell of a lot. I think because of that, there's a certain detachment. Without being unemotional, I'm certainly not cold or unemotional. I'm quite the opposite. But there's a certain amount of detachment that I'm able to use, and it helps to give me perspective. Sometimes it gets very faded though, fuzzy. You know, I'm not onto it and have that all the time. You know, I like anyone else, I struggle with different emotional situations and stressful situations, whether it's business, whether it's family. So it's, but I know the juice is right now, in the present moment, even as we sit here. The present, my friend, is a gift. That's why it's called the present. And again, they're cliches, and I don't want to sound cliche or that I'm reading stuff out of a book, because I'm certainly not on the sidelines reading this stuff in a book. I'm in there, having a crack. I'm the man in the arena. Another cliche, I'm that guy. And I take pride in that, in being in the arena, and at the same time, I keep my ears open and my eyes open and ask a lot of questions, and I'm as aware as I can possibly be. So yeah, that's a bit about me, my friend. That's a bit about me.
A man with many hats.
Yes.
And an interesting journey with a multitude of experiences.
Yes.
And you mentioned some great points, many great points. We'll start to unpack a few of those.
Sure.
Firstly, I just want to touch base on something that fascinates me, Nick, is speaking to a lot of people that have a passion for health and fitness, but also
the way it relates to their lifestyle.
Yes.
And I think this is a subject I always bring up, or I bring up this part because I think it needs to be talked about a little bit more.
Sure.
Like, for example, one of the first things you mentioned, and you can tell you're very passionate about it, is your family.
Yes.
And your role as a husband. And I know for a lot of young lifters out there, it's not something that they're all aware of at this stage, because they might not have relationships, they might not have kids, they might not have those responsibilities. Some of them do. And I think it's important to acknowledge. And it's nice to hear that someone who can still pursue and compete at such a high level can still maintain that balance. And I think being able to go in and perhaps explore these methods, your wins, the learnings, a little bit more can help people grasp more gratitude, better concepts that they can start to apply now at a younger age.
Yes.
For example, someone like myself, who's still single, still has relatively, a low responsibility, but be able to sort of take some of those teachings and put them into practice. And perhaps when that time comes, when I do have a family and I meet my wife, etc., be a little better prepared to be able to maintain that balance and not jeopardize those relationships. Because as you said so rightly, a lot of people are now coming from broken homes because I think they're getting hooked up too soon, they're getting themselves a bit too far, a bit too deep, and they're not really living in the present moment.
Sure.
But to digress and to springboard into where I'd like to start unpacking some of those experiences and the learnings, is the transition, Nick, when you were younger, from those years where you were, as you put it, in trouble with the law, and then that transition into bodybuilding. And if we can you talk us about how bodybuilding saved you, what it was, the disciplines, the experiences that sort of changed that mindset and those habits and those behaviors?
Sure, great question. I started weight training when I was 15. Well, actually, to be honest, I started training when I was about 10 with my brother. We used a broomstick with some house bricks and would slide the house bricks onto the end of the broomstick and do some curls and overhead presses.
That's ingenuity right there.
Yeah, right. So there you go. So that's passion right there. That's passion. That's in you. You know that. I was about 10. So my brother would have been 11 and a half, I guess, 12. I then got a weight set for my 15th birthday. I trained in my room every night. And I was really inspired at the time by the movies, and the action stars in the movies were Stallone. He was in First Blood. It was the first Rambo. I'd watched Rocky 3 at the movies when I was about 10, so that impacted me. Arnold had just done, when I was 15, he'd just done Commando. And I think Kickboxer with Van Damme wasn't far off either. So I was very inspired by the look of those guys. Again, the superheroes, the He-Man cartoons, always affected me and stayed with me. So I'd always liked the look of, ever since I can remember, that powerful, muscular physique. So that it was just in me. It was something in my psyche. And I don't know if it's in every male psyche or not, but it was certainly in mine. So at 15, I started training. 2 months after got my weight set, I joined my first gym. I think it was in the January. So my birthday's November 20. So I was only probably training in my room for maybe 6 weeks and got bored of the dumbbells and the barbell. Wanted to experience more and learn more about weight training. So I was 15, joined the gym, and to be honest, wasn't long after that's where the trouble started, with the alcohol and the violence, and wasn't long after that. So to say bodybuilding saved me, it was the competition that showed me the discipline. But the thing I loved about the weight training, even before the trouble started, the weight training, I guess it was hormones and puberty and all of that, but the weight training gave me something that I could see a tangible reaction to effort that I was putting in. Even when I was training and seeing my muscles swell up a bit, I was seeing a physical change occurring from something that I was doing. So it was very empowering from that aspect. I remember that was the first thing it gave me. And I loved that about it, that I was in control. I was the one that created a result. Because probably before then, you're sort of not really in control, and your power was taken away from you somewhat, by all of the authorities, being school teachers. So it was the first time I really felt empowered, I guess, was when I weight trained. Fast forward from 15 to 19, a lot of troubled years, a lot of violence, assault charges, court, alcohol, you know, being in Housing Commission and growing up in that environment, you know, there was a lot of drugs and alcohol and violence, and it was just part of life, really. Nothing I was ever comfortable with, but I had a lot of anger inside of me as well due to my upbringing, coming from a broken home. And you don't really understand that until you do the work. So I guess when I would drink alcohol, it was like squeezing an orange. The juice, what's inside, comes out. So drinking alcohol, I'd be out at parties and I'd end up drinking alcohol and fighting because this anger would start to come out. So, you know, it wasn't until I was 19 and prepared for my first bodybuilding contest, and I was ready for it then, because it became really, I remember being out at a nightclub one night having almost an out-of-body experience. And it was when I was working in the oil field, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off in the middle of Australia. I got that job when I was 17. My girlfriend's father at the time was a boss there, and I'm sure he just wanted to get me away from his daughter. So he gave me a job in the middle of Australia, in the middle of the desert, right?
That's a tactic.
So it was a good tactic. It worked, right? It worked. He's a smart guy. He's a good guy. He's a good man, actually. And so being the fact that I was in the middle of the desert for 2 weeks out of every 4, it gave me that physical detachment from my physical reality in the city, in Adelaide. So when I'd go back there and catch up with my mates and we'd go out and get drunk on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday night at the nightclub, I remember one night being in the nightclub just questioning the whole thing, going, what's this all about? All of these people work all week doing what they hate and then spending all their money getting out of it 3 nights a week, spending all of their money for, like, this is not right. I remember it was Lenny's Tavern at Glenelg. I had this almost out of body experience. And it wasn't long after that my brother had started training in a bodybuilding gym. I was in a fitness gym. He started training in a bodybuilding gym in Adelaide called Woodlands. And with another one of the bakers, he was a baker's apprentice. So one of the bakers was an ex-bodybuilder and took him to the gym and showed him a bodybuilding program. Sure enough, I joined my brother. Absolutely fell in love with it. And there was all these big guys in the gym. And I'm like, wow, men like this exist. Look at the size of these guys. It was amazing. And I soon realised, I think I could look like this as well. How awesome. So I started doing the bodybuilding routines, overtrained chronically a number of times, until one of the guys was getting ready for a bodybuilding contest. And he approached me and he said, how old are you? And I said, I'm 18. And he goes, you know, I reckon you could compete. So he goes, I'm competing on the weekend. And I said, yeah, I know the contest is coming up. And he goes, are you coming? And I said, yeah, I really want to come. And he goes, when you come, I want you to come backstage, come and find me, I'll take you backstage, and you can see the other teenage competitors close up. Because when you see them on stage with the tan and the oil under the lights, they look bigger than life. But you need to see them close up to see what their physiques really look like. Because he goes, I reckon you can do this stuff. I said, okay. So I was so keen, I went to the contest early, I found him. His name was Kim Schultz, God bless him, he passed away, Kim. So Kim Schultz took me backstage and I had a look at these teenagers. There was about 4 of them backstage. One of them was really good, a young Greek boy, Jimmy Kabos. Jimmy was very, very good. However, the others, they were all pretty good, but Kim said, do you reckon you can do this? And I said, yeah, I can hang with these guys. I'm bullshitting, you know, I can do this, I can hang with these guys.
Bit of bravado.
Yeah, there's a bit of bravado there because it was still in me. I was 18 and nearly 19, and sure enough, I saw the guys walk out on stage. They looked 3 times the size of what they looked backstage. And I went, wow, imagine what it would be like being up there. Wow, can you imagine that? And so sure enough, that was the SA in the October. I competed in the Mr. Adelaide the following March. So it was the NABBA, it was called SABA back then, it was the NABBA Teenage Mr. Adelaide, 6 months later. So preparing for that, I had all the disciplines of the cardio, the diet, which I learnt myself and I wasn't very good at it, and the training. So I trained myself, dieted myself. And the funny thing was, I used to really get off on doing cardio on a Saturday night on my push bike and riding past Lenny's Tavern and seeing all the drunk people come out at 11 and 12 o'clock at night. I'd be out doing cardio. Because I read many years ago about, I can't remember which boxer it was. Don't think it was Tyson. It might have been Tyson then. It was probably Mike Tyson. And he used to get up and run at 3 or 4 in the morning because he knew his opponents weren't doing it. And it gave him an edge to be doing the work when the others were sleeping. And that's what I thought when I'd be riding my bike for cardio at 11, 12 o'clock on a Saturday night pre-contest. I was doing the work while everyone else was out getting pissed. So it was very, very empowering, and the discipline was very good for me. And I found a sport that I loved.
There you go. It's great that you can remember so many of those people that impacted that journey, and you.
I don't think about this stuff
vividly.
until
it just comes out.
It comes out when you prompt me and prod me. Yeah.
No, that's
yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And I'm glad it was. I think you said it was a pivotal moment. It was like it was a chapter, as I like to refer.
Very much so.
That you can look back on and recall, and you went through this sort of evolution, as I'd explained it as.
Yeah,
correct.
It was a transformational chapter.
So now let's jump forward in time a little bit more, and if you want, we can delve into more of the competitions, perhaps, you know, that first experience on the stage, and then that how that led to an even deeper passion, you know, with the physique sports, and then how you came to found Gentech Nutrition and how that became, you know, how did you conceive of Gentech Nutrition? What was its conception, if you like?
Sure. So you want to know about Gentech now?
Yeah, well, but if you want, we can touch more though on your bodybuilding, like, because I imagine there was a lot more after you jumped on stage that first time.
There's a lot of chapters, Alex. When you talk about chapters, I'm thinking, well, I'm 48 now, and we're talking, I was 18, 19 in my first contest.
Volume 1.
30 years ago. So we could be here all day talking if I go through all the chapters, but something that I think...
Anything, I guess, pivotal within that era, if not...
Very much so. Something that came up and I'd like to talk about was the bodybuilding for me, and you mentioned him earlier today, we did some recipes for Nutrition Warehouse.
Correct.
In the kitchen. We did the breakfast shake, and you were talking about Frank Zane. So Frank Zane influenced me as a bodybuilder, but also influenced me in more ways, because Frank Zane, he impacted me because he was an extreme physical specimen, right? He's Mr. Olympia 3 years running in the late 70s. So he was an extreme physical specimen, but he also had a degree in experimental psychology. So he was an extreme intellectual.
Correct.
And then when I read more about him, he was into Zen Buddhism. So he's a very spiritual man as well. And I thought, wow, it's amazing to be able to look like that.
It's very holistic.
Right, it's holistic, which is a word that's thrown around a lot, but that's the true. He is very holistic.
He was ticking all the boxes.
Exactly, and it wasn't long after that. So the bodybuilding, the physical look of bodybuilding, it was not short-lived. That was always still a pursuit to become the best physical specimen I could and try and win a Mr. Universe. But then it went a little bit deeper into the psychology, when you would have to start to gear yourself up to squat. When I was a teenager, I was probably only squatting 3 plates, 140, but back then I used to squat 180 actually. I used to squat 4 plates back in my late teens. It was something I fell in love with, was squatting and training legs hard, because they were a weak body part. And I'd see some of the guys in the gym squatting 4, squatting 5 plates, squatting 6 plates with good form. 3 reps on 6 plates, and I was like, whoa, even 3 or 4 reps on 5 plates, ass to grass. It really impressed me. So, you know, but the psychology required to get under those sorts of weights, you'd start to work out and become aware of your own thoughts and the psychology behind the training. And then it would go a little bit deeper into the spirituality. So I started reading about metaphysics, which is really quantum physics without the science. So I was reading a lot of books on metaphysics back then.
Oh, that's quite interesting.
Yeah, because again, to be honest, was it after my first contest? I think it was after my first contest that I went to court for my 4th assault charge. So again, because it had been that period of time that I dieted and competed. Before I'd started dieting, I'd whacked a guy at a club one night and he put me up on assault. So I was facing those charges after I'd made this great transformation. So again, I remember speaking to my lawyer at the time and saying, oh, look, I've changed. I don't fight anymore, and I meditate now, and you know, because he said to me, he goes, I want you to pay me before we go into court, because if you go inside, you're not going to pay me. And I thought, I can't believe this is actually, he's serious. I could go to jail. I'm a fresh-faced 18, 19-year-old with a good little physique. Can you imagine? I don't think I'd be sitting here right now with a bodybuilding career if that had happened.
Yeah.
So luckily, I'd got a suspended sentence, but the judge really, he wound me up. He sentenced me to 12 months imprisonment. I was standing in the box and I nearly passed out, and he paused. And he said, but I'll suspend it for a period of 18 months on good behaviour. I'm like, oh my God, I got let off. So I got let off from doing 12 months. But had I got in trouble again in the next 18 months, I would have gone straight inside. But, when I told my lawyer, I said, look, I've started meditating, I don't fight anymore, I can't go to prison. And he goes, oh, it's all right, you get lots of time to meditate in jail. So I think he was putting the shits up me too, because I wasn't a bad kid, I always had a good heart.
Yeah.
It was just that I had a lot of anger inside of me and I was a bit wild. I'm an Essex boy and I was learning the ropes the hard way. So from that point on, I don't think I've ever had a fight since, and I used to be blueing all the time. And really the metaphysics, the teachings, because I wasn't exposed to religion, thank goodness, because I would never have got the teachings. I would have been too young to understand the teachings anyway. Mm-hmm. So the metaphysics gave me a lot of teachings about universal law and how the world works and the power of thought and all these sorts of things. So it enriched my life in many ways, and it really did stem from bodybuilding, and it stemmed from Frank Zane. I read an article by Frank Zane on meditations. It was the first time I meditated was due to an article in a muscle magazine. So again, when bodybuilding started, it was about health and strength. And I still think your bodybuilding lifestyle should improve your life. If you're doing bodybuilding in a way that is restricting you, it's no good. Bodybuilding should improve your life. And this is one of the many ways in which it did improve and enrich my life.
Hence the term bodybuilding.
Bodybuilding, it's about building.
Building the body. Yeah. And I
health
think,
and strength. And it's not just physical health and strength.
Well, no, this is the thing, it's the mental, right? It's not just building the body, it's building the mind, the spirituality, the soul. It's tapping into all those avenues, because if you just pay attention to the physical, you get very out of balance.
Yes.
And things get very outweighted.
Yes.
Which I think we see a lot, social media, you see it on the news, you see it on TV, you see it in the gyms. It's a shame, people use their size for authority, they use it in the wrong way to manipulate, to bully people, and it's a bit of a shame
for popularity, for their persona,
their ego and all
for
that.
their ego and persona, and that's. I'm very thankful that social media wasn't around throughout my. Well, I wouldn't have got away with half. I would have done time, I would say, but no, I'm so glad it wasn't around back in my late teens and early 20s, and throughout the majority of my bodybuilding career wasn't around, and I'm grateful for that. My heart goes out to the young people these days with all the social media and the pressures that are created because of it.
Now, thank you for sharing those key points, Nick. It's good. And Frank Zane, incredible athlete, incredible human, still going now. And again, one of the first people that was tapping into all those avenues and realized that it wasn't just one-dimensional. It was many.
And he was teaching it. He was teaching it at the Zane Haven.
Oh yeah.
So he was, which is, I guess,
Frank Zane experience.
Yeah, the Frank Zane experience. Yeah, exactly, the Zane experience. It was the Zane Haven, and a couple of guys I know from Melbourne, former champion Australian bodybuilders, Don Marnie, who also won a Masters Mr. World, and Peter McCarthy, who was a bodybuilding champion as well, who started Balance supplements back in Australia many years ago. Yeah, so Peter McCarthy and Don Marnie both went to Zane Haven before it was Zane Experience. So I guess I was exposed to Frank Zane back then through Don Marnie. I went to one of his seminars when I was a teenager. At that first contest that I went to, and Kim Schultz took me backstage. Don Marnie guest posed and did a seminar. And of course I hung around for the seminar and hung on every word. And he talked about Frank Zane and training at the Zane Haven and the philosophies Frank would teach them. He said he went there thinking he was going to learn about building big biceps, and he learnt about the power of the mind and meditation. Biggest thing he took away.
He was into I think it was
transcendental meditation. Yeah,
which is interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, quite a pioneer of his time, Frank Zane.
Very much so. Yeah.
Let's transition then now to Gentech.
Yes.
Because I'm sensing we're going to need a round two. Got lots to talk about.
Yes.
Let's touch base on, again, the conception, how you started Gentech, your passion behind, your inspiration behind the company, the ethos, the ethics.
Yes.
Talk us through that for people who are not aware.
Sure. I started working in a health food store, in my friend's health food store, because I'd overcome my first bout of chronic fatigue through seeing a naturopath and reflexologist and using herbs and so forth. So I became very passionate about herbal medicine and supplementation and health. It was in this time when I was reading about metaphysics, I was recovering from chronic fatigue syndrome for the first time, which pretty much stemmed from glandular fever, from Epstein-Barr virus, believe it or not, pretty much stemmed from that. So that's how I got into the health industry. I then moved up to the Gold Coast here when I was 21 with a good mate of mine, or I followed a good mate of mine up here, and we had a great old time when I was 21 and started getting more heavily into my bodybuilding. I had already competed, and I started working for the distributor for Musashi in Queensland. So that was the first time I'd done a reps job, and it suited me because I was passionate about the products and supplementation, and I like talking to people. So I was driving around all day talking to people about what I loved, and the products weren't selling that well. So that would have been back in 93, it would have been. So products are going out of date on shelves. I'm speaking to these retail stores. They didn't know about the products. They didn't understand the amino acids. They didn't understand the formulations and what they did. And I said that to my boss at the time, and I said, people, they just don't understand the products. And I was fascinated by the products, absolutely fascinated by these amino acid formulations. So we're talking back in 93 amino acid powders in certain combinations and formulas.
It's like the raw gland amino acids, the ones that tasted like...
They were tasted like, sort of dried off fish. Most of them, they were not good.
They were not like the ones we made yesterday.
That's right, correct. There's no amino slushies back then, let me tell you. And a guy called Tim Horwood started Musashi back in, I think, 83. So Tim Horwood was probably 20 years ahead of the rest of the supplement industry as far as free-form powdered amino acids. It was 20 years ahead. No one was doing them, no one. So I was fascinated about the formulas because they were developed by Dr. Barry Finnan, who was a head lecturer in one of the, it was at Monash Uni, I think, or Deakin in Victoria. So I was fascinated by the products, learnt about them, and I would just teach the retailers. As soon as I'd start teaching them and getting them to use them themselves properly, they started selling them.
Had to educate them.
Yeah, it was all about education. It was all about education, and I was fascinated. So I would just read and read and read books on amino acids, book after book after book. I was passionate about it. I was fascinated by it.
Yeah, it came naturally.
Yeah, it came naturally. And I wasn't a great scholar at school, but when I read these books, I understood. I understood it. And I stored it. It resonated. I stored it. I understood it. I got it.
You retain the information.
I retained. That's right. That's right. So, so that's where my sports supplementation background began. So after working for the distributor, repping in Queensland for a couple of years, I moved to Adelaide to be the state manager for Musashi. And in '99, I was getting ready for the NABBA Mr. Universe. It was my third shot at the NABBA Universe. And I was good enough to win it most years. I was looking pretty good, and I really thought I was going to win it. And of course, as most dieting bodybuilders get, you drop off with your work ethic. Or your focus on your work, and I wasn't doing as good a job as normal at work. And I finished up with Musashi. So I was about 10 weeks out of the Mr. Universe, and I thought, you know what? I'm glad I'm finished. I'm going to prepare for this bodybuilding contest like a full-time bodybuilder. This is back in July 99, about July 99.
You basically treated it like a full-time job. Then.
Yeah, for the October
which
contest.
It very much can be.
It very much can be. So the October contest in '99 was my third Mr. Universe. So I started preparing full-time once I gave the reps car back, and I'd saved $10,000 or $12,000. So I thought, got enough money saved as a devout bodybuilder. I was going to spend half my savings on getting ready for the contest and think about the rest later after the show. However, I started getting calls from other companies to start repping for them in South Australia or start distributing their products. And I thought, you know what? I don't really want to work for anyone. I've got all the contacts in the industry. I'll start distributing. So I started distributing just in South Australia to the key 10 good retailers there. And it was an easy job. I could work 4 or 5 hours a day really effectively. So I spent $10,000 on stock, and it was Design Away from the US and ProLab. So I started distributing those to American products in Adelaide. So I filled my garage full of $10,000 worth of stock, ran around to my top 10 retailers and sold it to them for $12,500 prepaid. Ordered some more, did the same thing. That was Gentech Nutrition. It was a distribution company. Started in August '99. So that was 20 years ago. I started that.
Would have been 8 years old.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, August '99 I started that, and anyway, I was more investing more money than making money, but I did the competition. I got 4th that year, which was a phenomenal result because two English guys that didn't even make the top 6 was such a stacked lineup, maybe the best ever. Class 4 NABBA Mr. Universe, maybe. Was so deep the lineup. 2 guys that didn't make the top 6 were English. Colin Wright and Mike King. Mike King had won the Universe in 95. He'd come in 10 pound heavier, in shape, didn't make the top 6 that year. So coming fourth was a real win, because those two guys, Colin Wright and Mike King, turned pro with the IFBB about 2 weeks later at the British. They both won the British. And Colin did the British Grand Prix after the Mr. Olympia, maybe 5 weeks after we competed at the Universe. And I think he got 8th behind Nasser El Sombadi, who's passed away now. But yeah, he was, I think Ronnie Coleman won it that year. So it was a stacked lineup. So I came back from the Universe. I filmed a workout video with Wayne Galash, GMV Muscle Videos, and got stuck back into the distribution business. In May of 2000, I released my own 2 products. Because it was funny, I didn't want to work for anyone, but once I started distributing, I realized that the main importer or manufacturer, because I was distributing Aussie Bodies, in the end, I was distributing about 4 different brands, I think 3 Australian and the American. But then my business was controlled by product supply from them. They were still controlling me and controlling my business. I didn't know what quality raw materials they were using in their products. And of course, I was still a competitive bodybuilder trying to win the Mr. Universe. So I wanted to use the best. I wanted to use the best quality amino acids, the best quality creatine monohydrate, the best quality proteins. That's what I wanted to use for my bodybuilding success. And that's what I knew I could then stand behind and educate on as being the best. So I didn't know when I was distributing other products where the raw materials were coming from most of the time, and they were also controlling my business. Hence the birth of Gentech nutrition brand, supplement brand. I released my first creatine monohydrate and glutamine in April of 2000, because I took them to the World Championships, May of 2000. So I took those 2 products to the World Championships in Christchurch in June 2000. I was stacking them, I was loading them for 3 days before getting on stage, creatine and glutamine, while I was carb loading to get that fullness. Yeah, so that was the birth of Gentech. That was it.
How did you? What was the inspiration behind the name? Is it
Good question.
Is it a funny story, or is it literally you were just like Gentech, genetics, technician, something like that?
Yeah, most people
this
think
is
that.
just I'm interpreting it. Just
No, yeah, most people think that. So I was doing cardio, walking. I remember the park I was walking through in Highgate in Adelaide, or Myrtle Bank in Adelaide. I was doing my morning cardio, getting ready for the Universe in '99. And as soon as I finished with Musashi, I never felt sad about it or really felt that a door had closed. I never felt that. I felt like it was a new beginning for me. That's how I felt straight away. It's a new beginning with greater awareness, which is a genesis. It was that point in my life, it was a genesis for me. It was a new beginning with greater awareness. So the Gen in Gentech was Genesis, stands for Genesis. And the tech had a nice ring to it, and the technology at the time that was coming in on the development of the whey proteins was giving us such better quality proteins, particularly out of Fonterra in New Zealand. So Gentech Nutrition, that's where it came from. It's Genesis, it stands for Genesis.
There you go.
That's what it is.
Because I always find it's interesting when you talk to people about the name behind the company and how it came about. It's usually, it's not what you think.
No, and it's not. Most people think it's genetic. Most people do think it's genetic.
Yeah,
that's what they think.
That's quite interesting.
Genesis. It was a Genesis. Yeah, I'm a little bit deeper than just the muscles, I even was back then. Yeah. Even though I was aspiring to win the Mr. Universe, That was the goal. That was the hard case goal. It was all of my focus. I drifted from the spiritual path a little bit. I was just so focused on the physical. That's all. It took the majority of my focus.
And we talked a little bit about yesterday the products and the quality of the products, and you understand the ingredients inside out and back to front, which is great as someone who's a business owner, because I believe that's something that's really important. You should know your product inside out and back to front. You should know where it comes from, what goes into it, and the technology behind it, etc. And you were telling me about the how you maintain the quality of the ingredients and how it differentiated from a lot of the brands, like you just alluded to there. We talk about products from New Zealand are generally very high quality, and just the way they're sourced, the way they're produced, etc. Can you touch base on that, some of the ingredients you use, how you differentiate yourself from a saturated market, because it seems like every Tom, Dick and Harry's coming out with a supplement these days.
Yes, yeah, it does.
So what is the main difference between high quality supplements and substances that you have at Gentech versus what you're going to get from say American products or the big name brands? And in your opinion, how do you sort of maintain that quality control? How do you identify that?
Good question. So the philosophy of the company and my passion has never changed, and that has been to build the best products that I can build. First off for me, because I'm still an avid bodybuilder. Like I said, I competed again earlier this year after 10 years off, but I still want to use the best quality products that I can use. I want to eat the best quality food. I want to live in a relatively pollution-free environment by the coast. I want to live well for as long as possible. So my personal goals have changed in the fact that I don't want to be a Mr. Universe, and I don't want to have to be that big to chase that Mr. Universe. It doesn't, that's not the passion. The passion is to live really well, to live long, but live really, really well.
Longevity as well as
quality. As well as quality, right? I want the quality. So I'm very big on quality, no matter what it is that I'm consuming, wearing, driving, living, relationships. If it's not quality, it's not worth having. So I'm very, very big on quality. And to me, it just works out that way that is our point of difference. Gentech is owned by myself. I'm a guy that walks the talk still. I walk the walk. I can talk the talk. I don't know much about anything else. I know sport supplementation. I know raw materials. I know formulations. I know amino acids in particular. So, nothing's really changed with the philosophy of the business. The difference, I think, with my products is that I own the company. I develop the products. I still work hard. Unfortunately, when you're building high quality products, and really that comes down to not so much the formulation. Yes, the formulation is important, but it's the quality of the raw materials.
Correct.
What I mean by that, with amino acids, there's some amino acids, creatine monohydrate. I mean, to source the Creapure creatine from Germany, it is 3 times the price of a standard creatine monohydrate that comes into Australia from the big chemical importers from China. So the cheaper Chinese manufactured creatine, and not everything out of China is bad. Don't get me wrong. Not everything's out of China is bad. Like that, they will use Japanese technology in certain facilities in China.
But you'll pay mass produced.
Yeah, you'll pay a premium for it, but not as much as you'd pay from Japan. But you'll pay a premium for that as opposed to an amino acid that's been manufactured with less filtration. So it basically comes down to the impurity levels. So a lower quality creatine or amino acid product, raw material, will really come down to the level of impurities in that ingredient. So the more filtration, the more processing, the lower the impurities, the higher the price. That's really what it comes down to. So I'll source the best that I can. So even my contract manufacturer here, I don't use all of their stock amino acids. I source my own aminos. Many of the amino acids I source, the ones I wasn't happy with the quality of the stock material. The Creapure creatine, I insist on New Zealand protein only. So due to all of these factors, I know I'm getting the best quality products. I can stand behind my products. I can use them with complete faith. And if I can use them with complete faith, I can talk to you about them with complete faith. It's funny, I get a bit bored of it. I feel like I sound like a salesman and a broken record, but it's simply that I still want to use the best quality supplements, food, water, air. I want the best quality. I want to put the best quality in my body for optimal health, performance, recovery. It all helps with body recomposition if you're doing all the other things correctly. So that's our point of difference. And I don't do it for a point of difference. I don't do it for a marketing story because it's just the way it is. It's just the way it's evolved. And it is a point of difference, I think. And that's why I work so much, because when you do manufacture high quality products in Australia, they're very expensive. My margins are not fantastic compared to some of the big commercial offshore brands. And it's really challenging competing on price point with a lot of the imported big commercial branded products. It's challenging. So I work my butt off still. I keep my overheads low from that perspective. I run my business on a shoestring. Even as far as the marketing, we don't spend a lot on marketing. I spend a lot on the raw materials and a lot on the products and a little on marketing, as opposed to a standard product in most other industries. I'm not saying the supplement industry, but you'll get something like one of the top branded fizzy drinks and they'll spend that much on the marketing and that much on the product. So we're the other way. We spend that much on the product and that much on the marketing and the reps and the overheads and the wages. And so I work my butt off still, which is good for me. It's good for my kids to see it. It's good for me to keep me on the straight and narrow and be efficient, and it's good for me. It's not a bad model.
Agreed. Quality over quantity.
Definitely.
I love a man who leads by example.
You have to be.
I think that's really important.
Yes.
And again, it's quite rare. It is quite rare. I think there's a lot of people who shortchange quality for quantity, but usually because they can make a dollar.
Yes.
You know, so at some point, the carrot gets bigger, the ethics go out the window, and people kind of, you know, quote unquote, sell out.
Sell out,
like.
yeah.
So it is, I respect that, Nick, and it's really lovely to see someone who's still passionate and stands behind their brand, you know, in terms of you're right there on the front, you'll back it up, but you know you can back it up because it is quality. And I think that's important, and that is integral, and that is what will generally help you stand the test of time.
Yes.
Because you will get that support from, again, not only local, you know, business owners, people respect that something's made in Australia, but the people who are really into the quality. And I think there's a bit of a shift. I personally believe there's a bit of a shift now.
Yes.
Social media, instant gratification, everything like that. People are starting to wake up to a lot of these sort of, you know, flash in the pan companies, and people are sort of going, hang on a minute, this is not worth it. Sometimes it's better to pay more or invest more and get something far higher quality, far more premium, because at the end of the day, you know,
It's better value at the end of the day as well.
it's better value, but also, like you said before, you can be here for a good time and a long time. I remember when I used to study, you know, there's a saying going around, people said, you know, I'm here for a good time and a long time, and I always used to
say that when you're young.
Yeah, but I always used to stand there as a sort of a bit of an outlier and go, well, no, I want to be here for both. And people would go, you can't have both. You can't have your cake and eat it too. And I'm like, well, yeah, you can.
You can,
and
yeah,
I think, you know, that is true of it.
Yes.
So thank you for sharing a little bit of a background there, Nick. It's good to get an insight. I think it's great for listeners and people to understand, again, the product, the people behind the product, where it stems from.
Yes.
It's impactful. It gives people purpose when they're going out and they're actually choosing a product. This is why do you choose a product? You know, why would you choose X over Y? When you go out, why do you choose Heinz sauce over Waddy's? You know, what is there's always something behind it. It could be even down to color, but if you understand what goes into a product, like we were talking about Pix peanut butter off camera, like, you know, you want to support that. And you don't mind paying a little bit more to get a lot more.
I'm like that.
I believe.
I'm like that, and like you say, there may be a shift, there may not be a shift, but even if there's not, there's always a certain percentage of people that are after quality and that are after results.
It's niche.
Yeah,
You're
after results.
Not a generalist.
Yeah, that's it, right? Yeah, and there's plenty of generalists out there, you know. And I think with business in general these days, it's been tough in Australia the last 12 months, 2 years in every industry. And I spoke to a gentleman the other day that's been in business for some 40 years, and he was more so in restaurants and cafes in the food industry. And you know, some big name businesses are falling over. And I said, why is that? Do you think, is it true that people are spending less? He said, yeah, potentially. The election and everything had an impact. But he goes, I think the main thing is there's too much of the same offering. And I thought, yeah, that's very insightful. And I said, I thought about King Street in Sydney, in Newtown. I thought, wow, every second restaurant is a Thai restaurant. How are they all surviving? You know, and again, there's probably 20% of those that are busy, and the other 80% are not. So I just think, yeah, it's because of the same offering. Cafes, you know, there's 10 in the one street, 20% of them be doing well, you know.
Yeah.
But the other 80%, the others have got the same offering.
You've got to have that USP, I think they call it, unique selling point, or you've got to have something that's different. Like what is it about your product, about your service, which will help people come back? You can find that, and usually it stems from something that your competitor can't replicate.
Yes.
And you will be victorious.
Unfair advantage.
Nick, let's move into now some more lighthearted questions.
Yes.
I again, as I've alluded to, I think a part 2 is going to be great. We can delve into some more
Sure.
key topics and more of those interesting chapters, because I think, you know, you've got a lot of learnings to share. There's a lot of wisdom there. You know, there's a lot of great metaphors that you use into stories, which help people kind of ascertain the teachings and learnings, which I always think is great. And that helps people sort of grasp onto those concepts and apply them in their own life.
Yes.
But in the meantime, rapid fire questions.
Yes.
Really simple, bit of fun.
Okay.
As honest as you can. So the first one is nice and simple. It's always a good one. If you could choose a superpower, what would it be and why?
Whoa. This is a rapid fire question.
Yeah.
First thing I thought about was throwing balls of light, throwing balls of energy.
Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
That's not a bad one.
Don't get started on the protein balls, mate. Please don't start on those.
Wee.
But I do this martial art Arakan, and it's almost like you're throwing balls of light, and it's such an intense energy. So these balls of light could be love, or it could be strength to ward off the enemy, to ward off the darkness. Throwing balls of light.
Energy. I like it.
Throwing balls of light.
Okay, let's go with that.
Balls of intense balls of
Let's
light.
keep with the ball thing.
Okay.
That's a side note and an evolution to something. If you guys keep your eyes peeled, that we've been working on.
Yeah. Check out the recipe section of Nutrition Warehouse, and you'll get it.
It's all good fun. All right. Second one is your favorite food, favorite meal. If you had one last meal, what would it be? You can choose appetizer, dinner, dessert, sweet, savoury, drinks, whatever you want. It's just one big meal. It's the last meal. What would
Goodness
you
me.
It's the Last Supper.
It would have to be a buffet that included all of my favourite foods.
Which what?
I'm a burger fan, as unrefined as that is. I love burgers. I absolutely love burgers.
Basics are the best.
I love grilled burgers. I really like grilled.
They're actually good.
They're good. I like grilled. I love a restaurant in Chinatown in Sydney called the Golden Century. So every dish that they serve up is melt in your mouth. I guess the salt and pepper squid. Mm-hmm. You get salt and pepper lobster.
Oh,
Dude, it's very extravagant.
Right.
I think I've eaten it 3 times because it's live seafood.
yeah, they don't
Live,
they
so
don't
they
mess
catch
around.
it. They catch it.
Which one do you want?
Yeah, I take my kids to this restaurant and I get indigestion because I'm up and down taking them back and forth to the fish tanks more than sitting and eating. But I took my wife there on our first date, so it's pretty special for that reason as well, to be honest.
Nostalgic.
Yeah, it is very nostalgic. And but that salt and pepper lobster, the steamed fish in ginger and shallots, again, they catch it and they bring it to the table flapping in the bag to make sure you're happy with it.
Want this one? Yeah.
Oh, that one quick. Make it quick. Make it quick.
Daddy, what are we doing with that? Never mind.
Yes, yeah.
We'll play in a minute.
That and it's not around anymore, but my favourite dessert, it's not around in Australia, was Baskin and Robin cookies and cream ice cream.
Ooh.
That was as good. That was
Cameraman nods.
Oh, you just wave
in
the white
agreement.
flag and give up when you try Baskin and Robin. Like, I like cookies and cream, and I love my coconut casein. It's not just a plug. I love that. That's my favourite dessert. But prior to that, Baskin and Robin's cookies and cream for dessert.
I've got one for you then.
Go on then.
If you want, before you go back. The Danish ice cream
Okay.
here, Copenhagen.
Anderson's, Copenhagen. Yeah, Copenhagen's good.
They do
It's
a
good.
midnight cookies and cream.
Oh, do they do? They never
Midnight
used to.
cookies and cream. So it's cookies and cream on steroids, if you
dark.
like. But it's got like dark chocolate in it. I think, from memory, I think they do a combination of a white milk and dark. But the midnight cookies and cream, Copenhagen, absolutely amazing. Everyone I've recommended to loves cookies and cream.
I
Loves
will
that.
try
It's
it.
like it's just another level.
I know Copenhagen.
Please try
I
it.
wonder if we must have some in Sydney. I'll look it up.
I've only actually seen one, but I'm sure there'll be a few. But it's just really rich. It's like Ben and Jerry's, but better quality.
Yeah, the Ben and Jerry's is not bad. I find it a bit too sweet.
It's just too
That Baskin
much.
and Robin was just,
Just bang on.
you wave the white flag. I'm telling you, surrender. You give up. You give up.
On to the next one,
Yes.
rapid fire.
Rapid fire.
I'll throw this one at you because I know you're a bit more spiritual, holistic. You got another layer. Do you think there's life after death? Do you think there's anything else?
Oh God,
You
how
think we
deep?
just die?
How deep do you want me to go? You want my true philosophy on this? Your true self, your higher self, your real self is eternal, immortal, universal, and infinite.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. So
That wasn't even pre-scripted.
no. So
Bang.
it's an affirmation I use
like it.
sometimes to give me perspective. So I think the body dies. Certainly the body dies, and there's always going to be a lot of mourning for the loved ones that are left behind. But your true self, your spirit, your true self, your higher self, it's eternal. It's immortal, universal, and it's infinite. And that's our true self. And it's, do we ever in this lifetime tear the ego away to get to that and sit in bliss with that and listen to that and be fueled by that, our true self? I think that's probably heaven on earth if we're able to sit in that space. Not sure if you can do it in the, and ultimately as well, after doing a lot of transcendental meditation and using theta metronomes and doing all this crazy stuff many years ago, we're here in this lifetime. This is the physical plane. We're here for a physical experience. I believe we are spiritual beings having a physical experience, not the other way around. We are spiritual beings. That's what we are, having a physical experience. So get in the arena, be physical. It's a physical experience, and feel all the emotion. Don't completely detach all the time. Live, laugh, cry, love, cuddle, do it all.
Embrace it all.
Embrace it all. This is a physical experience. So get in the arena, do it.
Very eloquently put. Very good, Nick. And on to my final question.
Yes.
As always. And this can be related to anything we've talked about today. It might be something else that you derive out of this question. But can you share with us and identify a fear that you've had in your life? A major, might have been a minor fear. What you did to overcome it and what you learned from that experience.
Wow. I still have fears, daily fears. What's a major fear? A major one, and how did I overcome it?
It might be, when I say major, it doesn't have to be large. It might be just a pivotal bookmark that you always go back to and go, that was a turning point, or that really always sticks with me. And it could have been something as small as falling off your bike, but it taught you something greater. It could have been, I made a wrong purchase. It could have been, meeting your wife and how that came about, and just having the courage to maybe approach, or whatever it might be. I'm just throwing out ideas, but it doesn't have to be something catastrophic, because a lot of the time it's a small thing.
Yeah, that resonated. To be honest, when I met my wife, when I met Angela, it's a funny story. I'll give you the story, but this was the fear of mine was when I realised that she could potentially be the one. It scared the shit out of me, to be honest. It really scared the shit out of me. And I think because I'd come from a broken home and I hadn't given up on marriage, but I certainly wasn't chasing it. I was putting out for a loving, supportive partner. That's what I was putting out. That's what I was asking the universe for when I met her. And it's funny, I was asking her for that, but I was very indifferent to it and very happy in my own skin and living on the beach at Glenelg in Adelaide and riding my Harley on the weekend and doing my bodybuilding training during the week and working 6 to 8 hours a day, and had a good old time, a great life, I was very, very happy. Painting, playing guitar, meditating most mornings before I'd walk on the beach, see dolphins and have a coffee and chat to the barista and then start my day. And I was in a
good routine.
I was in a really good routine, a good space, and very happy. So it wasn't like I was yearning or longing for someone to make me complete, not at all.
That's important.
Yeah, I guess
just for people listening, I personally believe as a younger folk, listening to people more experienced, because I always ask people, when did you meet? How did you meet? If they don't mind, like, what's the story? What conditions? How do you know? It's interesting because that is important, because I think a lot of people are looking for someone to complete them.
Yeah,
and that's a slippery slope.
Yes.
That's an issue in itself. If you're looking for someone to fix you, complete you, make you whole, I think that's very misconstrued. Again, this is just my opinion. I believe that your significant other, your soulmate, your partner should complement.
Yes.
And of course, if you have been with them for 10 or 20 years and you lose them, you can't just go, oh, well, that was it. Like, they've been part of your life. It's going to affect you emotionally, physically, spiritually. But going back to what you were saying, Nick, sorry to interrupt, but I just think it's really important to that point there. You were in a really good place.
Yeah, I felt very complete. Felt complete, very whole. Again, in a bit of denial, probably in some areas, because we've always got a lot of growth to do. And I think your partner doesn't complete you, but your partner may have other attributes that are more developed that you don't, and you learn from them, and vice versa. You've obviously got something to offer them and support them and teach them. So ultimately, to become complete, but I think that just happens. So yeah, that's what scared me. Was I think when I realized Angela could really be the one, I fell in love with her. She embodied a lot of, she had all these attributes that I really admired and respected, and we became great friends before we got together. So that scared the shit out of me. How did I overcome it? Again, you sort of finally come to that point where you make the decision to just have a shot at it. You know, she lived in Sydney, I lived in Adelaide. We moved to the Gold Coast for 12 months to see if the relationship would work. And it was hard, dude. It was hard. She comes from a very different background to me. So again, it was like two backgrounds trying to get along. And the backgrounds kind of couldn't really get along. They couldn't, they were so different. But we needed to understand each other's background, and that took quite a bit of time. But, you know, I loved her, and age-wise, it could work. And these strengths that she had, I could see myself with her long-term based on her qualities, her values.
Yeah, it wasn't the physical, it was the ethics and values.
Yeah, that's right. And that scared the shit out of me. That did scare the shit out of me. And when she fell pregnant with our first daughter, Electra.
Oh, it's a good name.
Yeah, Electra.
Powerful, strong.
Yeah, my kids are too. They're
Well, it's again a Greek god, right?
yeah, exactly. Yes, the Greek goddess.
Read up all about those Greek gods.
Yes, yeah, and yeah, my other one, Mariah Xena. She was going to get Xena as a first name, and I said, "Hun, it's a bit too full on." But I wish I called her Xena because she's a Xena, my middle one. She is
Greek god
Xena.
names.
Yeah,
Phenomenal.
yeah,
Mythology.
yeah. Same. My little boy, Alexander. He's Xander for short, but Alexander. So, yeah, those things scared me, and I think, how did I overcome them? Again, I just went for it, you know. I just went for it. It's like, if it's going to work, it's going to work. I'll give it my best shot. And again, it's been hard, mate. To like I said earlier when we were talking, you need to put time in still to your marriage, to your relationship. And it is hard. It is hard. And the current day and the pressures of the current day, I started reading a book on fatherhood on the plane on the way up here yesterday, and it was brilliant. There's lots of little excerpts from different celebrities, some professors that have studied the area of fatherhood. You know, Mark Wahlberg, Tim Cale's in there, David Beckham. There's a bunch from in there, and it's
Some great names.
yeah, but a dad's role is so much more hands-on these days.
Oh, it is.
So much more hands-on. As well as being the breadwinner, we need to be so much more hands-on. And you've got to stop and pinch yourself and go, hang on, this is a privilege. This is a privilege because I would say our grandfathers, didn't know my grandfather, but had he been pushing a pram of his child around the streets of London, he probably would have got ridiculed to see a man pushing a pram or changing a nappy.
Oh, yeah.
So he probably got bullied out of changing a nappy. We don't really enjoy changing nappies, but the percentage, it was something like the percentage of men who hadn't changed a nappy, I think it was in 1960, of fathers who had never changed a nappy, it was 43% back in 1960.
That's an interesting statistic.
2 years ago, 3% of men. 3% of fathers had not changed a nappy. Just goes to show how much more hands-on fathers are these days. So there's a lot more pressure to play all of these roles these days. It's really challenging. And for the mums, I don't know, it just seems like the stakes are higher these days. The kids do so many more activities than what we did when we were kids. I didn't do dance like my children and play piano and go to athletics group and gymnastics and swimming and...
You always want to do more. You want to do better for your kids, don't you?
Yeah,
You
that's
always
just
want to sort of give them that
that's
little bit more.
right. Yeah, we all do. We all do. So we put more and more pressure on ourselves, and it's getting more expensive to live these days, particularly in Sydney, and it's getting more competitive in business. So, yeah, I think the pressure these days are higher than ever. So it puts a lot of strain on a relationship. It puts a lot of strain on a husband and wife, and it's challenging. So, you know, if there's anyone out there that thinks that I've got it together because they see the picture of me and my beautiful wife and family on social media, it's a challenge, and it takes work. And that's the thing. It's these things are a privilege. They're a privilege to be worked at. But you gotta work at them. It takes work and it takes effort. And a lot of the time, guys, the last thing you want to do at 10 o'clock at night, when you've come home from work, you've helped feed the kids and put them to bed, and you've got up and you've helped tidy the house, and you might have done a couple of emails, and you're absolutely exhausted, and your wife wants to talk. And my wife's a bit of a night owl. She wants to talk at that time of the night. You think I can sit there zoning out watching some YouTube and ignoring her? That'd be divorce papers in 12 or 18 months for any woman. They need to feel appreciated. They need to feel significant. They need to feel significant as we do. we need to feel significant. They need to feel significant, particularly by their husband or wife, their partner, you know.
Goes into like the love languages, which I'm really passionate about as well.
Oh, really? Yeah, you'd teach me stuff on that. I can only teach through experience. I can only give knowledge. I can only give experience. That's all I can give.
It's a great book. It's called The 5 Love Languages. We all are aware of them, but again, as we've talked about, once they're given context and explained with stories and real life anecdotal like evidence of real people, you just start to click, and all of a sudden relationships improve. Because everyone has 2 primary love languages. Like your kids will have different love languages, your wife will have different love languages to yourself. If you understand the true primary roles, then you can completely connect and speak 100% the same language. So even people who have got great relationships, they can strengthen them even more because they can tap in to exactly, and it sounds to me, based on what you just said, your wife's primary love language is quality time. And that's undivided attention, face to face, no distraction. She needs that. If you don't give her that, no, she's not. Her love tank.
Which is no different to any woman on the planet, is it not?
Well, all people, we all have the love languages, but there's primary. So there's quality time, physical touch, there's words of affirmation, there's receiving gifts, and there's acts of service.
Right.
So even though
I know what they are straight off.
We like all of those things. Yeah, and you will identify it straight away.
Straight away.
And then
There's
when
2
you've got the
major ones.
context in there, you'll go, but it just gives you another level of understanding. Like
What's the name of this book?
5 Love Languages.
5 Love Languages.
It's brilliant. And for anyone
Get it,
out
guys.
there,
Get it. I'm going to get it.
This is
5
the
Love
one
Languages.
Everyone should read. This is one of the books I recommend. It's top 3 book. Read it. It was referred to me by a friend who sort of unfortunately fell in love with a lady and thought it was the love of his life, and then years later she sort of just backed out of it, and he was just in a world of hurt. And anyway, he referred this book on to me, and he said it's just good for anybody to read. And it is, and there's different versions of it now for singles, for couples, etc.
Right.
And it's phenomenal. I took so much out of it. I think when everyone listens to it, you'll be thinking, you'll be thinking about relationships you've had with people, and you'll go, yeah, and you'll think about other people too, and other people you know, and you'll go, that, and it just all of a sudden becomes even more obvious. And even though we're all aware of this, people go, that's simple. No, read it. It'll put it in context. Context is key.
Yes.
It reframes it.
Yes.
But anyway, to digress, Nick, thank you for sharing. I think that's a beautiful way to sum up what's been an insightful conversation. Thank you for your time again. But
Pleasure.
just before we go, where can the lovely people listening, find more about yourself? Where can they follow you if they want to learn more about what you do with Gentech and yourself and your personal endeavors? I know you're a fairly private guy as well, but obviously you've got that business side too.
Yes.
Where's the best places to keep up to date?
The best place, I'm a little bit slack on social media, but my Instagram's Nick Jones World Champion is my Instagram, and of course there's the Gentech social media and YouTube. So we do a lot of videos on YouTube, so you can learn a lot. You can learn a lot there on the Gentech YouTube channel. There's a lot of content there.
That's fantastic, Nick. And look, as always, guys, I will be putting all of these links in the description below and in the show notes. So guys, please do follow those links. Follow along with the journey. You've heard it here first. And as always, until the next time, stay fearless, Nick. Thank you once again.
Thanks, Alex.
Pleasure.
Likewise. Thanks. All the best, my friend.
And I'm sure we'll be doing a round 2.
Yes,
Guys,
great.
stay fearless.
See you guys.